Here, I'm recording the actual intro. Oh my gosh. Hi there. My name is Amy Fagan. Thank you for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My guest is Jen Joray. Joray? Did I say that
You
right?
said it beautifully,
Okay.
Jennifer
And,
Joray.
and Jen is from Eastern River Farm in Pittston, Maine. And she reached out to me on Instagram and she was like, I would love to talk on your podcast. And I was like, heck yeah. And so now I'm learning all about her, and she is so fascinating and so fun. And so usually when you think of a farm, you think of like animals and you think of vegetables and stuff like that. But Jen like focuses on flowers, but they do have animals, and they do some vegetables too. But you don't focus on the vegetables. You said not so much the vegetables. But so thank you so much for being here, Jen. Thank you. How are you today?
Oh, Amy, I'm great, and I'm so thankful that you are so sweet and kind and excited to chat with us.
Heck
Thanks a
yeah.
lot for having me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you Eastern River Farm is mostly flowers.
Yeah. We are a specialty cut flower farm and we do weddings.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I
when I say do weddings, people think we have them here on the property because we have a nice big 1840s barn, but we don't host weddings. We grow for weddings and we use 100% of our own material, and then we harvest, style, and arrange. We either do full service or we deliver, or people come and pick up a la carte, which is like they choose pieces they would need for their wedding off of a menu.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
cool.
just, it's really a less expensive, it's more affordable way for them to kind of like a restaurant. You go get what you'd like, and it's prepared for you, customized for you, and it's been really popular. So those are the two wedding flower styling kind of offshoots of the business that we do. The full service is the whole shebang. We go and style the space, customize everything, and a la carte has lots of choices on a menu, and people can buy their flowers that way and pick them up ready to go. And they just set them out on their tables and pull their bouquets out of a vase. Everything's in water, grown fresh, harvested the week of their wedding, oftentimes the day before I style. So you really can't get any fresher than a farm for your flowers.
That's awesome. I kind of like that idea of like getting to choose your own. I think it kind of gives you that feeling of ownership. I think, especially when you're getting married, that there's so much that's like outside of you. You're like, oh, I'm gonna have someone doing my flowers, and here are the colors that I like, and then they just show up, and you're like, okay, that's what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's cool that you get to, have some ownership in that, and you know,
Yeah. And a lot of people come to us, they just don't know. Like a lot of the couples getting married are younger and they don't have any experience with varieties,
yeah,
which is great because we have all that experience. So we don't need people to say, I want roses. In fact, if they say that, I usually say, go see somebody else because we are not the cookie cutter florist at all. Everything is heirloom, fresh, grown here. A lot of the flowers would be locally found here. Like we do use lupin and delphinium and feverfew,
oh
nigella,
my gosh,
grown, you might see in Maine, and salvia and things. Um, but basically, if somebody says, I don't know what I want, I ask, well, what kind of clothes do you wear? What kind of stuff do you like to purchase? And what does your house look like? Are you a simple person? Are you a romantic? Do you want something wild and eclectic or soft? And then I just go from there and style with a good color palette. And a lot of times they don't even know what colors they would like with the flowers. Um, just as an aside, I think the easiest thing for me to do is have a bride tell me, or a couple tell me, this is our color palette. Here's what our wedding party is wearing. And then I'll be like, okay, I'll look at the color wheel and it's the opposite color on the color wheel. So let's say blue dresses, I always suggest peach flowers. When a lot of young couples will come to me and be like, blue is our color, can I have blue flowers? And I recommend highly staying away from the same color flower as their theme because you want the flowers to bring life
yeah,
and have some vibrancy against their already chosen favorite colors.
yeah.
So that's a good example. Like, pale blue bridesmaids dresses do peach flowers. They're going to bring out your skin tone in photographs and look really natural and warm. So I love that stuff. And it's really easy for us because we've done it for so many years now. It's just tell us the basic stuff you need, and we figure it out.
That is so cool.
Make it easy.
How did you get into that? Like, that's not something that you grew up doing.
No, although when I was a kid, my mom would always cut little perennial flowers. Like you and I were talking about perennials. We had a lot of perennials in my little rental house growing up, and my mom would cut lilacs and pull daffodils and things, and then put a little wet paper towel and like tin foil around them. And I'd frequently bring bunches to my teachers. So I have that memory when I was little, like first grade, second grade, bringing flowers all the time.
Oh my gosh, you were so meant to be a farmer.
I think I was. I would sit outside just listening to the birds and playing with like worms in the grass and insects. My dad, for his hobby, but it's a very serious hobby, is an entomologist. So we would go out, my brother and I, on like beetle expeditions. One year we saw this the 17-year emergence of the cicada, and like these are all entomologists, older men mostly, and they would like one of I remember never forget, this guy ate one of them in front of us and was like, do you want to try? And my brother and I were like, no, thank you, no. But like I grew up in Connecticut, so we spent several years every year going to the Connecticut Entomological State Society dinners and stuff. So I was around that stuff, and my dad's a biologist anyway, and he studies cichlid fishes off Lake Malawi. So like I was around the biology piece, but I never thought I would do that for a living because my passion has always been music. So music took me where it was supposed to. I'm a professional flutist, and I've been teaching classroom music for 20 years. That was my life before the farm. But I married a scientist, a chemist, and so how we got here was like one day when we were living in Salem, Massachusetts, in our tiny little 40th of an acre spit of land in the historic Derby Street Neighborhood Association. We just we were trying to grow a little bit of our own food in our yard, and my husband had built planter boxes with hinged tops so the squirrels wouldn't eat our starts. And like there was this giant ornamental Bartlett pear tree over our entire small yard, so there wasn't much sun. We couldn't cut it because it was our neighbor's tree, but branches that would hang over our yard, we were allowed to trim. So we would always carefully talk with our neighbors and be like, we're going to take this much off, okay? So we had a little sunlight, but we couldn't really grow that successfully, although we did enjoy the process, and
Mhm.
our daughters grew up with that. Starting plants in the kitchen and planting out like April 1st in Salem, we were able to plant out the cold hardy things like spinach and lettuces and sorrel and beets and stuff, Swiss chard. But then we very quickly realized it was nice to eat our own stuff, and we were kind of stuck in terms of the space. So we tried to get our neighbor to sell us a parking lot adjoining our house. Like next to our house, there was a mirror image of our house that had burned down many
Mm.
years earlier. And it was just a parking lot for the National Park Service. And her brother owned the lot. So we really wanted to buy it and put up a greenhouse and grow food. Like that. We tried that route, but it was not comfortable for them. They wanted to keep that in their family, that parking lot. And so I thought about leasing land. We started to kind of visit. We would, before we had the kids actually, we would drive around all over Massachusetts and try to find places with more land and a barn, and just nothing was affordable. And then one day my husband came home and he was like, I think we actually need to farm for a living. Like let's leave this life 100% and farm. And I'm like, oh my God, you're crazy. What are you talking about? We both have careers. At that point, we did have two children, and like they were involved in activities and had friends at school. And we were doing the traditional life that all my friends were doing. And I just didn't want to go. I remember pushing back. We were outside a Dick's Sporting Goods parking lot one day, and I just like burst out into tears. I'm like, I'm not moving. I'm not. What are you talking about? This is not going to happen. And Anyway, long story short, he said, let's do it slowly. Let's look for a place. Let's research what we could farm and how we could make it happen. And then maybe we'll rent out the bottom unit of our two-family house, and maybe we'll just visit the farm. And so, really, long story short, that's what we did. After 3 years and a lot of research, 3 years of searching, a lot of driving, we did buy a farm and do it remotely for the first 2 seasons from Massachusetts. So every Friday night, we'd bring our dinner, our small dog, our small rabbit, the two girls, my husband and I. He would like make a burrito or something he could eat on the way. And we would have like, containers with forks and spoons, and we would just eat. In the wintertime, it was in the dark. And we did this every single weekend. We'd just drive the 3-hour ride, eat, the girls would watch a movie or we'd talk, and then we'd drive back on Sunday. And while we were here at the farm, we would like mostly walk around the property and dream. But when the spring came, we actually did plant 70-foot by 4-foot rows that we had hand prepped with shovels and organic compost and amendments.
Mm-hmm.
We put down drip line, and my husband hooked up some irrigation to our well on the property, and we left for the week, went back to the city and worked. And like I just kind of did the Hail Mary, please no animals eat our flowers,
Right.
and our veg. And every weekend I came back, things had grown bigger, and the pests had not found our flowers and our veg yet, because it was just an open field. For some reason, it just stuff survived. I really can't even believe it, thinking back how things lived without much handiwork from us. Like we didn't weed much. We just kind
Wow.
of planted and left. And that second season, we had a little more experience. So we grew a lot more that second season and put a perimeter fence around it that was electric, with a solar panel for the electric fence that you can move.
Nice.
Yeah, and it worked. And we had some florists come and look, and we were like, look, we're growing flowers. What do you need? And that second season, one of the prominent florists whose work I really admire, pretty local here, she was like, I want to see a full 70-foot row of feverfew. I want to see a full 70-foot row of whatever it is, not these like 6-foot chunks. So I thought, oh, wow, we need to grow a lot more. Gonna service local florists. So the third season, we started to get into weddings ourselves, and we did grow a lot more. We were growing at least a half acre, if not 3/4 of an acre at that point, which was just a lot of 70-foot rows. And we realized we had to invest in a tractor, implements, stop like hand shoveling
Mm.
rows, because we
Right.
were at a scale where it was not
Yeah.
viable anymore for our bodies. Mostly my husband would do the shoveling, and it was
Sure.
like, an hour per row to prep. You were walking up and down so many times. And so we invested in a tractor and a bed layer. The bed layer had to be strong enough to pull through clay. So that was
Woo.
something we took a lot of time and conversations to learn. It was more expensive than we had hoped, but you have to have the power to pull something through clay. So that was big lesson number one for me. I was like, oh,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
we can't go cheaply on this. Like we have to invest in equipment that's going to last and keep our bodies in good shape. And so, like pretty much from there, we just, well, I guess COVID hit, and that was like a big fork in the road for us. We could have stayed living in Massachusetts or moved up to Maine, which was like our long-term retirement plan anyway, but we just pulled the trigger and we were like, we're moving cold turkey. And the biggest reason we moved instead of stayed with the commuting, of course, it was a pain to commute, but I think the biggest reason was the requirements for who and how you can rent out your property were in negotiations, and it was possible that rent would be set at a certain amount, and we may not have had the freedom and the flexibility to choose our rental price for our own property. And so that was pretty scary, because it's like you need to meet a certain amount of income to own two properties, and the financial piece was was a little bit just out of our control. So we decided it'd be better to sell the property in Salem. My best friend was like collecting homes slowly over the years. She'd already had several units. She and her husband, one in Lynn and their house in Salem, and I think they had a third property, and so this was like their fourth. And she purchased our house, and then
That's
we didn't look back.
yeah. That's awesome that you had it already, like it was so easily set like that.
Yeah, well, you guys know it's not ever easy to make those giant decisions. Like we thought it'd be a lot safer financially to have that income property, but when you look at the reality of the potential drive, 6 hours round trip if there's a problem, it
Yeah,
didn't work out. I said we can't leave our farm for a whole day just on a whim if there's an issue. So we
right.
sold it, and I'm really glad we did. And then I got a job up here in Maine teaching. It's a half hour from the farm, which works. And I just like bust my butt to do the farm work that I'm supposed to do when I am not at work. And my family does the majority of the farming now. So my husband left his job a few years ago to be full-time farm, and we decided that the girls would stay here and be full-time farm too. So they're homeschooled on the farm with him, and they've had such a strong relationship. I can't impress upon you how positive it's been for the three of them.
Hmm.
I'm kind of the oddball now because I still work, but I'm really pleased that I can help support the farm and the growth of the farm and the family by
Right.
working off farm. So they do all the animal chores. We have tons of animals now because we're here full time. So you really can't own animals unless you're on your property full time,
Oh,
unless
heck
you have
yeah.
somebody to like live here and work for you if you're not here. But that's not how we wanted to do it.
No.
We got lots of chickens. We have 16 ducks now, I think, and half of those are ducklings that were born here last spring, and a couple geese, and 6 pigs. They're champion stock Kuni pigs. So my youngest, who's 11, it's her company. She's starting. Of course, we're doing a lot with her to get it up and running, but she has a pig breeding business. So we can provide breeding pairs to other small farms the way we've set it up. So that was the big project through last year, was setting up a farrowing unit that was 2 units. So we can have 2 litters simultaneously, and those pigs can breed. Their bloodlines all mix with really low COIs, which is coefficient of inbreeding, that's what you want. You want really, really low COIs so that you have really healthy pigs that work really well together,
Hmm.
because you don't want to
Wow.
interbreed. You don't breed siblings together. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
a whole host of problems. So our herd was set up by a very well known and respected breeder who started the American Kuni Society with her colleagues, and she's recently last year broken off from that and started her International Kuni Society, Pig Society. So the IKKPS is where we belong, and all our pigs are registered. And they're all actual champions now. We've gotten titles on all of them but one. She's growing, so hopefully she can have a
Wow.
champion title. Either reserve champions or champion stock. So, and they've come from all over the country: California, Colorado, Virginia. Um,
Wow.
it's expensive to set up our starter herd, but it's a small herd, and they can all intermix. And we have our
Okay.
first litter now. So we'll have some meat, but the purpose of the business is to offer breeding pairs to other small farms.
Okay. And does your 11-year-old daughter understand all of that stuff?
Oh yeah, we do monthly Zoom meetings with the IKKPS members, and she's actually better at the confirmation standards than I am. She's like, Mama, that tail set is a little high. I'm like, wow. And Kathy, the woman I was telling you about, who's our mentor and helped us set up the herd we have, she bred for over 10 years. She's like, yeah, Chloe, dead on, smack on, you got it, you see. And I'm like, how are those pasterns, Chloe? And she goes, no, that one has a bit of a bend in the rear right. So you want something that's you want them to look like ballerinas. They have to have really tall,
Wow.
pointy toes, and
That's
we're not
awesome.
It's not like, oh, we want to show our animals. We're doing it for the health of the breed. You want your
Right.
pigs to be extremely healthy and have long, good, happy lives where they don't have pain in their bodies. Their bodies are made properly for the long haul, and also can gain weight quickly and easily on pasture.
Mm,
So, but like
mm.
the, we're way verged away from flowers now, but
That's all
um,
right.
it was an exciting thing to be able to have animals when we moved here. So that was like a big turning point for our family.
Yeah. Well, everyone doesn't need to do flowers on your farm. Like you've got there's four people.
But we all do. We all do
Yeah.
100% nearly flowers when the season starts.
That's awesome. But I mean, there's everyone has I mean, your daughter has the passion for pigs, so that's
Yeah.
very cool that she has that opportunity and she's an entrepreneur now. So sheesh, that's amazing. And
That was,
so
yeah.
yeah, so you've got your animals and you've got your flowers and you do grow some vegetables.
Yeah.
And you are teaching and everyone else is home on the farm. But
Yeah.
you have so I'm curious about your the process. I know you said it took like 3 years and you were looking for the right place
Yeah.
and then you were here for like one day. You drove up one day, one night, and then you were here for a day, and then you drove back the next day.
For like two
Um,
nights, Friday night and Saturday night. Yeah, we
Friday
kept,
night and Saturday night, and then Sunday you drove back.
yeah.
Um, and you were just like dreaming and walking around and stuff like that. I
So
mean,
much,
so much, yeah.
so much dreaming.
And how did it all work out? I mean, is it how you planned?
Oh,
Is it
I gotta
better?
laugh.
Is it not how you planned? How did it?
No, it did not turn out how we planned at all. We had planned on this process being a lot slower. I think that's my husband's biggest beef, if I can sort of talk for him without him saying it for himself, is that we just grew faster than it was comfortable for him and probably for all of us, really.
Okay.
We just grew quickly. Um, but we've already had this conversation and we have frequent family meetings as a team, as a business team. Our daughters are 11 and 14, nearly 15, and this is their family farm. We are doing this for them. They know that.
You're
It's for
setting
us
them up.
too. It's for the next generation. It's for providing for them and their future if they should choose to stay here. But so we involved them from a very young age in a lot of the business decisions. And at this point, we're even involving them in the financial decisions because my husband and I both, are very emotionally attached to the financial part of this farm since we have given everything that we have had, our retirement, everything we've had financially, we've put into this business. And so it's easier for us to get emotional about that. And we've recently decided that our kids they're not emotional about it. They are growing up here. They have a passion for what we're doing. Um, and they are going to actually take over what we can get them to take over for the finances going forward. Like that's a big thing for this coming year. And that's a lot for kids, but they're very mature kids. And of course, we're always here to support them with decisions. But I think in general, like the day to day and the month to month financial situation, they are actually in a better position. They
Mm,
make fabulous decisions. They're both savers. They want to invest. They like the idea of growing slowly. They can see the value of certain crops over other crops. And they're both very comfortable saying, Mom, you really don't need that color of Nigella. Like we just sell the blue the most, so only grow the blue. And you need that all season, so make sure
yeah.
you plant successions for the blue and don't worry about the white so much because you use white feverfew, Mom? And I'm like, I do? They're like, yeah, you use white feverfew and blue Nigella. You don't need white and blue Nigella. So like they're very good and tight about like what we plan and they truly understand the work behind it because we've all done it together. So
I
they're
love having someone to ground you.
yeah, my
I
daughters are my grounds for sure.
That's awesome. I mean, I would be like a crazy cat lady if somebody wasn't like, do you remember when our cat was really old and we spent all that money and all the messes and all that stuff like, just say, you don't need all that. But
Yeah,
that's awesome. And do you remember, we don't really use that. That's, you use the white feverfew. You don't use the white Nigella.
yeah. So it
That's
did
awesome that they're that are attentive.
they're so important here. Like they make such good decisions. So how did we think this farm was going to work out? Did it work out as planned? Not at all. And most of the benefits we've seen since we've started farming, we could have never imagined. I mean, it's so much better than we could have imagined, but at the same time, it's been so much more challenging than we ever could have imagined.
Oh.
But a lot of the challenges, I think I could have mitigated earlier on. So many people do this, right? I see the dahlias. I want those colors. I've got to have all these varieties. It's so exciting. We have to spend $10,000 right now and buy all the dahlias in the world. That's like my dreams were so big early on. And if I had pulled back a little and grown slower, we wouldn't have wasted so much time and money. And I shouldn't say wasted because it's still an education. We just paid dearly for certain parts of it
Yeah.
over others. Um, so that's like pretty much in a nutshell. It's turned out far better than we could have imagined. It's been more expensive than we could have imagined. It's been so much more challenging than we ever could have imagined. But oh my gosh, none of us would have done it any differently. And
Yeah.
that conversation all the time.
But the benefits. I mean, did you know that the kids would latch onto this like they did?
No, and I'll never forget. This is for all those city folk like us who are dreaming about this. This was me. I was running on a treadmill in the downstairs when we didn't have any renters in the downstairs of our two family, running on the treadmill before the girls woke up. And I remember emailing Joel Salatin, a prominent farmer in Virginia who's published and does a lot of talks all over the country. He emailed me back and he was like, by golly, what a shout out of an email. Like, you keep this up, you get that farm, you can do it. But he did say, and this is common knowledge, if you don't get your kids farming by middle school, it's a lot harder to get that buy-in. Like once they're middle
Mm.
school age,
They're not
it,
going to take that interest. Yeah.
it's going to be tough to hook them because there's just too much social pressure and
So
school
much
will suck you in.
distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, so Violet was literally in fifth grade when we got this farm. Um, and actually, she was younger than that. She was in third grade and she was in fifth grade when we moved. So we pulled that plug on the public school education for her in fifth grade. And that was the COVID year for her. And
Mm.
Chloe was in second. Um, and I will say this, it was right in time. She was on the edge of, the first month we were here full time, we heard from both girls so many times, I'm bored. I'm bored. And we're both like, good, TV's off. There's no iPad. We don't have cell phones. Like cell phones, we had a cell phone, but the
Right.
girls, like go outside. And for about a month, we just heard, I don't know what to do. I'm bored. And then after that first month, we never heard that again. And we still don't. They
Yeah.
go all day outside. They have walkie-talkies. They can go. We have 20 acres, so they'll go like hiking. They're not allowed to go to the river without us for obvious reasons. It's rushing water, but they can go with us, and they go all over this farm. They play with the chickens for hours sometimes.
I love it.
They'll go to the greenhouse. They'll play. Since we have clay, they can actually make things out of clay too. It's good workable clay. So like they'll
Yeah.
sculpt. My youngest likes to do a lot of woodworking, and she has part of my husband's shop that's devoted to her, and she has her own tools, and she's allowed to use a lot of the hand tools. He'll help if it's like, a dangerous tool, like a
Saw.
saw, like what is it called? I don't know, a saw, some kind of chop saw. She was listening. She goes, chop sawzall saw stop. Yeah, we have a saw stop, which was so expensive, but if you put your finger under that thing, that blade is gonna stop dead.
Good.
So saw stop was a big investment, but I said to my husband, if the girls are using this, please get something really safe. So
Right.
like they do woodworking, they do my oldest likes to preserve a lot of things. So she is a rabbit, so she picks things throughout the season, dries them, and has gold jars full of like red clover tips and dried raspberries and blackberries. Both of them do that, but there's a lot of crafting. There's a lot of physical work. My oldest said one day, I love living the farm life. I love this. And you know what she was doing when she said that? She was mucking out the duck coop.
Shut up.
My husband goes, honey, I came home from work that day. He goes, I got to tell you something. This is what Violet said
I
today.
mean, it wasn't like
What?
sitting in a field of wildflowers. It was
Exactly.
mucking out the duck pen.
She was mucking out the crap and she was like, I love this. I love farm life. I love being outside. This is for me. And I ask them frequently, I'm like, do you want to
Look
go
at what
back
you
to
did for
school?
her.
It's not so much me. I mean, I worked to get us here really, really hard, and I've worked so hard to get the flower business up and running. I do a lot of long hours on the computer before and after work and meet with clients, and I do a huge amount of planning and seeds. I'm the seed starter, I'm the plant care person, but my husband does the watering, which is a huge and very difficult
Absolutely.
because I'm not around. Like in the middle of the day, the seedlings would die without watering. So he's got
Mhm.
excellent at that. But other than that, he's the one. He's the one that's fostered this crazy strong bond between the two of them, and just being on the land. Like, and it's not easy. Obviously, it's all weather, -degrees. They're outside with their full gear on, bringing water to the animals and checking all the water heaters and the health of the animals. We've had some, everybody does. There's death on a farm, and we've talked about that since the beginning. There's sometimes when we have to help an animal that is beyond help, to send it on, and that's really hard. It just
Mhm.
happened again a couple days ago with a beloved creature, and it's just part of the deal. They see it, they see death, they see suffering, but it's not for long because we can intervene. Like in nature, an animal is suffering, you don't know, you can't help it. But when we see that, we can do something about it. And so
Mhm.
we've had a lot of hard decisions. The girls have had to make those, and my husband makes sure they're a part of the conversation. Like, this is why we need to do this.
Mhm.
So, and
But
you've
what a
got,
gift that you guys have given them
yeah.
to experience the earth and this world as it is. Like this is a whole different world than what they would grow up in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we're still friends with some really wonderful people back there. And my oldest just recently said, like, I'm starting to see the divide now. Like, what's important to my really good friend and what's important to me are quite different things. And we had prepped her for this, and she goes, I know we've talked about this, but I'm seeing it now. I'm really seeing how I spend my time is so different than how my city friend spends her time.
Yeah.
And it's not here or there, it's not bad or good. It's
Right.
just a very different way of seeing your life and what's important to you. So I'm thrilled that we've been able to do this. It's not been easy, like I said, and it's been expensive. However, if you're sitting there and thinking about, oh my God, I would love to make soap out of goat's milk. I would love to have pigs, or I would love to start a flower garden and maybe like do some bouquets. So many people start that way, and you really don't need much land. There's so many different ways to access this. You don't need a ton of money, you don't need a ton of land. We just did it on a bigger scale right away because we wanted to make it a full-time business. And by year two, we were pulling in enough income for my husband to be here full time. And by year three, we were pulling in enough income for the three of them to stay and work. And my job helps. We still need my job for the insurance.
Mhm.
Um, but like, you can do that. We took a giant bite. We didn't just do little nibbles. But then you get more income from more risk potentially. So that's
Right.
where we were. But you can do it small. You can start on a quarter acre or less and just grow intensively market garden style. So I'm specifically talking about flowers because that's what we know best. Um, and maybe you've heard this, but like the plant spacing on the back of a seed packet suggests, let's say, delphinium 12 to 18 inch spacing.
Mhm.
We plant our delphinium at 9 because we're only growing it for one season, although it can overwinter on our particularly wet clay, it does not do well over the winter because it tends to rot out with the moisture level. So we treat it like an annual on our farm, and
Mm-hmm.
we space it at 9. So you can fit twice as many plants. You can cut and cut and cut all season long off of specific varieties of plants. And if you know what people are looking for in your area, and it's pretty much the same type of palette all over the East Coast. You need pale blue delphinium, you need a lot of white flowers, you need a lot of blush, you need some soft peach. There's not as much of a need for the really bright wildflower unless that's your niche. And that sort of is our niche. We do a lot of bright wildflower. But like the wedding palette is typically kind of a soft palette. So if you really want to start growing some flowers in your backyard for some local floral designers, they will be more than happy to purchase even just a handful of varieties from you, like some light blue delphinium. Again, that's hard to ship. It doesn't look great when it gets here from overseas, and there's never enough. There's never enough. There's never enough peach foxglove. There's never enough. Well, our biggest surprise was sweet peas. Our first season growing sweet pea flowers, we really didn't sell any, and we didn't think it was a good crop. But then the second season we did, and it became one of our most sought after crops. So we do grow a lot of,
Oh, interesting. They're
yeah,
so sweet. It's such a beautiful little delicate flower. Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
They smell so good and
Yep.
they're cool party. So like, there's a lot of specific flower varieties you can grow in a small space and get high production and just do it as a side for a while till you start to see what your florists want. But they always want that beautiful filler. Um, You could also just grow a lot of grasses and greens. A lot of florists don't get enough fresh foliage, so that's another whole enterprise or avenue you can think about, especially if you have forsythia. That's a fabulous green for weddings.
Mm,
It's so prolific in New England. And you just cut, 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 and it keeps growing.
yeah.
And you can't cut it all the way back. I found out one year I cut two. My husband's been 3 years now nursing this one bush back to health. He's like, you're not allowed to touch that. So I am not the perennial cutter. He does the perennials. I tend to cut too much. You shouldn't really take more than a third off of any perennial. Um, so you
That's
could,
me too. I get carried away. I'm like, you're gonna get a
oh,
haircut. Down to the ground.
some plants love that, but not most. So there's all I'm saying is there's a lot you can grow in a really small space and get your hands kind of in the dirt and
Mm-hmm.
try some stuff. And you'll be amazed at how much you can sell things for. Um,
Yeah.
Money is a really hard topic for people, and like what to sell, even for farmers, it's really difficult to find the price of what you can sell things for. But in general, if you look at the wholesale pricing, I sometimes look at the Boston Ornamental Terminal Market. Boston Ornamental Terminal. If you type that in, you'll get the flower prices.
Hmm.
They change every week. There's very little availability of stuff like delphinium. You don't see fresh, fragrant filler like feverfew ever.
Hmm.
You don't see nigella. Like these are all big, empty spaces that can be filled
Right.
by local growers. And florists want that stuff. It's just not available because it doesn't ship. Um, and if you want something that's a little slower, you can try some perennials, try hydrangea, but you don't want big mop head hydrangea. That's not as easy to sell. You'd want paniculata varieties that have smaller heads. And some varieties, with how far you cut them back, they'll grow either bigger or smaller heads, so you can adjust over the years for your particular market.
Mm.
Smaller heads because my florist can't find small enough hydrangea for a bouquet, so I'm going to cut mine higher up, leave more stem on the plant, and then they make smaller heads. And that's, just that alone, you could sell a stem for 250 or $3 all over the place in the North Shore Boston area where we were.
Wow.
And there's nothing like fresh. So, another great one's Iceland poppies. It's a lot harder to start, but if you can buy some starts from a local farmer who has a wholesale account, then you can try them on your own, or you can try starting them in your kitchen under some shop lights.
Hmm.
We know all the tips, and we grew without a greenhouse for the first 2 seasons. Professionally, like, I mean, once we had the farm, we were growing for farm sales out of our kitchen still. So you can do it. You just need some shop lights, and you need to have like the soil. Buy bags. We bought bags for a while. Now we buy, dump truckloads, but
Wow.
sling bags come to our farm. But in the beginning, it was just a regular potting soil bag.
Right.
Uh,
Now
you
it
don't
comes
need
by the
you don't need too
truckload.
much. Yeah.
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 Wow. What a story, Jen. My gosh. And I just keep thinking about just a few years ago, you were in Massachusetts just dreaming, and you weren't even dreaming. You were just thinking maybe there's something else for us. And then your husband said, I think I need to be a farmer. Like, I think I just need to be a farmer. And then
Yeah.
you guys just figured out how to make it happen and just took your time and, little by little you made that happen and then you got here and things just exploded. And I think that
That's true.
it's probably, plants spread. So that, there's only, you said that things just like happen faster than you planned. But I
Oh,
think, plants spread. And then when you're here, animals procreate. So
yeah.
things just happen, and you're here to monitor it all. I think that also the kind of homesteading mindset is that way as well. Because I was telling you about um Catherine, who I talked to, who is also a homesteader, and she was manipulating her husband in the best possible way, but doing something similar. Like, I think I'm gonna get some pigs. He's like, yeah, sure you are. And then
And then they're
like,
here.
no, they're going to be here in 2 weeks. He's like, we don't have a
Oh,
place for them. She's like, no, but we've got 2 weeks to build a place. Um, but it's just, I think it's just, you're here and these are your goals and, we're here, we might as well do this. Right. But I think it's beautiful the way that you guys have done that and just like grown this and you're doing so much with it. And
yeah.
it's a family thing, which is also beautiful. And these kids they have so much appreciation for the earth, for business, for animals, for life.
Mm.
And you guys have done that for them. And I think that's beautiful. And I think there's just going to be so much appreciation. They might end up living in the city, but, they'll always appreciate nature. I mean, thanks to this experience.
Absolutely.
Um,
And I don't
but
think they will. I think we've hooked them enough. I think it's such a great life
yeah,
that you hopefully will always come back to it, even if you take
yeah.
a break for
And so you were telling me before we started recording that you have that from the time that we talked last and today, you said that you guys have made a new plan. And so this is starting in the spring. You guys are going to be doing a plant sale. So I
a
just
while.
want to make sure since we're recording.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Well, people have asked us continuously all through the years if we could just help get them started on a cut flower garden or sell them specific things, but they don't know exactly what colors or what flowers might work for them. So we decided to put together a cut flower garden in a tray, of a nice big beefy tray, which is like the 1020 is a standard tray size. It's about, 2 feet by 1 foot. It's not exact, but I think it's 10 inches by 20 inches even. And then it has 32 plugs, which are nice, long, beefy root systems with the plant. So we're going to do 32 starts of a mixture of what is really beautiful cutting material for the whole season. So things that you cannot buy in a garden center, like eucalyptus, lisianthus, maybe some dahlia, um, what's the word? And I'm blanking on it.
Tubers?
Cuttings,
Oh,
not
okay.
tubers because they're too big to put
Yeah,
into a
yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
a
Okay.
nice, vibrant, vigorous cutting. I'm very good at taking cuttings. I start in early February, like pre-sprouting our tubers that are in the basement, and then we slice those up carefully and plant those into 5-inch pots, and then they grow foliage, and I take the cuttings off the foliage, and those baby cuttings are sometimes even more vigorous than a plant grown from a tuber because they have so much new energy and life. They're
Mm.
producing tubers and flowers in their first year. We have several tubers from those cuttings by the end of the season, so you can then go and save them for yourself over the winter if you want to dig them out. but they also produce prolifically with blooms. So I find them to be even more vigorous than a plant started from a tuber. And
Ooh.
so I think farmers really differ on that. But I've seen it with my own two eyes for the last 5 years. I prefer my cuttings. They're just so vigorous and young and produce tubers and flowers. So I'm going to put cuttings in that tray, um, along with beautiful fragrant filler that can also be used for teas, things like feverfew. I love my bitter feverfew tea. I love bitter stuff. It's really good for you. Calendula, things that are producing many, many times. So if you cut a stem for your kitchen or you make a bouquet out of your flowers, those flowers are going to continue to come back and keep blooming, because that's the purpose of an annual flower, is to bloom, set seed, and die in one season. So we're going to fill that up with annuals, that tray up with beautiful cutting material, and hopefully that'll work for all the people that have been begging us to help get them started on a cutting garden.
I think
Yes,
that's exciting.
me too. I can't wait. The planning part is probably my favorite piece to the farm. My family makes fun of me that I'm like the Excel master. I just love
Oh
all
my
the
gosh.
possibilities. Because you can't make a mistake on paper. It's just paper. Like,
Right.
I enjoy so much the possibility and potential. And it's really hard for me to then limit to, okay, here's all the potential, but I'm going to now just take this little slice for the year and here's what we're doing this year. That's hard for me. That's when my family comes in and they're like, Mom, don't grow that white Nigella, grow the blue. So we need the reality check, but I'm really great at the planning piece. So
Mm.
uh,
Wow.
can't wait to plan your garden. So come and get a tray from us this spring.
Okay. Um, but so I want to plug Jen a little bit because she's not really doing that very well for herself. But so she's
Aw.
doing this this plant sale, but if you can't tell, she's done so much research. Jen is so smart, and her husband, the chemist. These people are just like super smart, and they've done so much research, and they're just so knowledgeable about so many things. And they are dying to share and to teach people. So they're talking about like doing classes and teaching people. And so if you have questions about anything farm, garden, seriously look her up. um Jen, how can people find and follow you?
Oh,
I
thank you, Amy. Well, we have a great website, easternriverfarm.com. We have a good Instagram, which is the same name, Eastern River Farm. I don't really do Facebook much, but I'm an avid emailer and I check my email several times a day. So you can get me off of my website. You can get right to me on a contact form or sign up for a newsletter, or you can just email me directly, Jennifer Joray at easternriverfarm.com, and I look that account up all
okay,
throughout the day.
cool. And
But I
I'll
do
I'll put
love,
that info in the show notes as well. But I just think
thanks.
um she you you love researching, and
Mm,
you love learning, and you love teaching.
yes.
And I think that
Yes.
this could work out really well for a lot of people that have questions that are like, there are so many people that have tried, there are people, who was it? I was talking, a friend of mine, Fawn. I need to hook you up with my friend Fawn, because
Cool.
somebody started her with some tomatoes this year, and she was like, it didn't really work. I'm quitting. I'm like, okay. So,
Oh,
but you try something, it doesn't work one year, and then, it's hard to not get discouraged, but there's also like, there's so many variables, and there's just so many things that could go wrong, so many things that could go right if you try different things. And I think you're a really good person to talk to about that, because you have so much understanding, and because you're friends with Joel Salatin, which is like he's like the guy to know when
I
it
don't know if
comes to
I'd say
so
friends
many
with,
things.
but
Yeah,
we've
you're
had
friends with him.
conversations. We've
Yes.
we've studied his material that and
Yeah.
actually, here's a plug for him. He's now starting to do a class finally, and I think he's kind of been against this for so many years. He's a lifelong farmer. His family started farming in another country, and they bought this farm that he currently has with he and his wife and his kids. His kids are now farming and like doing the managerial part. So, he's getting older, but he's literally been farming his entire life and he's in his 70s. So he's probably the most knowledgeable animal for meat production farmer that I know. And there are a lot of awesome also meat production farmers here right here in Maine. Um, yeah, so that is our strength. You're right, Amy. We've had so many failures and challenges, and that's what learning is. You have to fail, and then you don't give up. You go, that sucked. I wasted all that money and time, but it's never a waste. Like I said, it's part of your education. The failure is your education, really. So maybe you look up on like we know where to go to find these things or how to set yourself up in your kitchen or your laundry room for a little, 10 trays of veg or whatever. We can say, here's the stuff you need, here's the cheapest way to do it, the least expensive way to do it, and the very basic steps that you need to take to be successful right off the bat, which are get a soil test for $15 through the University of Maine Extension. Um, then make sure you have a sunny patch with decent drainage. And we're on clay, like I keep saying, wet, heavy clay. And so if we can make a business out of it, even without good drainage, you can grow your own vegetables or flowers. Like that's not an issue. And some plants revel in the wet. There are plants like willow, hydrangea. These are cutting things you can sell too that love, love, love the wet. They all say they don't want to be in wet all the time. They don't want wet feet, but they kind of do because our willow's doing way better in our watery section. It seems to always have
Oh,
a
sure. Yeah, willows definitely
petal.
don't mind being wet.
No, and there's so many types of willows for cutting. There's curly willow. There are different colors of pussy willows. We definitely know the information and where to go to find it. So anybody is more than welcome to email me like, well, where do I even buy my seeds? Like, what tomatoes should I grow? How do I get them from having bottom end rot? My husband's great with tomatoes, by the way. That's
Mm,
kind of how we started in Salem was, I didn't say this, but our neighbor had a little section of garden. Her husband, her dad had always kept as a garden. So we took that over, built a new fence, dumped great organic material. And we did have like a little garden that wasn't on our 40th of an acre. It was still very small. I should share pictures with you, but we learned the veg that way. Yeah, and one thing you want to be aware of, like if you're thinking about growing stuff, is don't plant food or herbs for your kitchen in the ground around an old house or out the back of a barn or too close to the exterior of a workshop or any outbuilding that's been there for a while because people would dump their trash. And not only that, the scrapings of the house, like when you're
the
repainting a
lead
house,
paint.
yeah, the lead stays in the soil. And this is where my husband's better than anybody because he's an inorganic polymer chemist. So he understands how long things last in the soil, what you need to be aware of. And he did some testing through his lab when he was had access to a laboratory of that yard where we grew veg and found high levels of arsenic. So then he was
Oh, gosh.
testing our veg, our carrots, our tomatoes under like a mass spectrometer, maybe. I might be wrong
Mm,
about the machine, but he was able to find out what chemicals were in the food we were growing and what was in the skin. Like, so you just have to be careful not planting too close to the structure. If you have an older property, you want to be out more, a little bit away from that
mm,
potential lead paint
I guess
buildup.
so.
But other than that, there aren't too many concerns with growing your own food. You can just grow it anywhere there's sun and get the right varieties of seeds so things are stronger against the rigors of your particular space.
Gotcha. But so folks remember that you can reach out to Jen because
Yeah,
she loves to help and she wants to help and she loves
I
to
do.
research. So and she wants to be helpful. And between her and her husband, they are gonna know a lot. Um, so last question that I have for you, Jen, when I say the word sustainability, what does that mean to you?
Wow, there are so many levels of sustainability. There's emotional sustainability, financial sustainability, sustainability of time. So I think for us at our stage, because this is really the only thing I understand is our own situation. For our own situation, what is sustainable, what it means to us right now, and what we think of when we hear that word is time management, not taking on projects that are so giant that they're going to suck the majority of our time away from other things that we've already
Hmm.
agreed to do, like run a flower business. For us, that's what sustainable means, is being able to manage our time to do what we truly have passions to do, and and make that successful for our family. So from a physical sustainability standpoint, I love to make cheese and yogurt and ice cream and skim off the cream from the bulk milk I get from the milk house, which is super high quality, raw, organic certified milk here in Monmouth. I pick it up at Sheepscott General. And by the way, also that's the place people can go to get flowers from us. Is most of the season, especially in the spring, we deliver flowers to Sheepscott General in Whitefield, and we work very closely with them. So I pick up my milk from there, but it comes from the milk house, and I skim off the cream and I make my own dairy products, and we use the cream for our coffee, but it's not as sustainable as we want it to be because it takes me so much time to pick up the milk, let it sit for 24 hours, skim off the cream, and then make, what do I make, butter that week, or maybe I use it as part of the milk for the cheese. It takes so much time from my week to do those dairy products that I'm taking a break now so I can really focus on farm planning. I love my own cow, but that is not sustainable time wise. That's really the piece for us, is the time. Like my husband goes, you've got 24 hours, and some of that you have to sleep. So the rest, how are you gonna
Right.
split that up? What's important to you? So the hardest thing by far about this farm is the time. It's just time management. And the weather dictates what we do on our scale. Like we can't muck out the duck tub when it's pouring, or the duck enclosure or the chicken coops when it's pouring, but we can put some really good effort into cleaning the greenhouse. When it's below freezing, we're not about to like change the duck tub waters and clean the duck tub because, or the duck enclosure, because it's frozen. But we can freeze our seed packets for the upcoming spring and get all our material ready and have our lists at our hands, or maybe even start some seeds in the germ chamber. So sustainability for us is the time management piece, and the weather is the wild card. Um,
Yeah, it
I
was.
just want to do more than I can do. Um, and I've really been missing the connection with the community because being head down in the flower business is not as community oriented as I want to be. So the Sheepscott connection is important for me. Like it's maybe not going to make us much income to deliver the bouquets. It's a small amount of bouquets a week. So it's the labor that goes into that does not get reciprocated in the price that we bring back, but that's not the reason we do that account. We do
Hmm.
that because we want to be out in the community. We want people to see that we have a farm, um, and we can be a part of their lives that way. So
Right.
that's where I'm putting more of my energy this year, and hopefully it'll continue to be sustainable. But we're putting in when it's not so wet. We'll finish our We have like a gravel parking pad area, which will allow for more workshop participants. Then they can come and do field walks with me and see how we start seeds and
Oh my gosh.
learn how to grow their own gardens, not just veg, but flowers and herbs, and maybe they can come and visit the pigs and really understand, stay on the property for a couple hours and really understand, like, this is how you pasture animals in a small space. Here's how you use the electric fence. Here's how you farrow. Here's how you give little shots if you need to.
Mm, that's awesome.
So I want, if as long as it is sustainable for us, and that's what we're going to embark on this season, I want to be more of a face in the community as we've gotten more and more comfortable with the flower business. Because that's taken like all of our effort and time for the first 5 years to make it successful. But now that it is, how can we add that other piece? So hopefully it'll be sustainable because that's the goal. We want to have a holiday shop before Christmas next year. where people can come to the barn and like purchase locally made Maine goods, not just from our farm, but from our neighbors. We've made some great friends over the years who sell everything from um, honey to maple syrup um, to beef, and we'll probably have pork and just so many local craftspeople. We want to be able to showcase their work at a holiday, like a weekend
Hmm.
where you can go and do something fun. And yeah, I'll have flower workshops too, like how to make centerpiece, how to make a hand-tied bouquet. I really couldn't do that before this season because our driveways just, cars are one
Yeah.
after the other. So hopefully that last little change to our north field, adding a bit of parking is going to help
Yeah.
bring us to the community more.
Yeah. Like a wreath workshop would be fun too. I did one this fall. That was really fun.
I love wreath making, but my friend who owns a farm nearby is so good at it. I don't think
Oh,
like I might, and she wouldn't mind. She said that before, but she just does it so well. I don't want to step on her toes. But there's a lot I want to do. There's so much I want to accomplish.
I love that you're involving community. That's your goal for
That's the
this year.
ultimate goal, yeah, is for people to feel like they can actually grow some of their own food. And you don't have to do it all. Just start with garlic. Start with something you throw in the ground and forget about till July.
Hmm.
And cut off your scapes, make some pesto, and pull out your garlic in August. And then you've got a crop you can hold on to for the winter that you're going to cook with. That's a very easy, like a gateway plant, I think, garlic.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's really good medicine. It's
Yeah.
an amazing antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, helps you break up phlegm and a cough. If you have a bad cough, garlic will loosen the phlegm and get it to expel from your lungs, like especially raw. If you can chew a raw clove without getting too much stomach upset, that's the best. And you can like process it. You can make fermented garlic. You can cook it on the stove in butter for an hour, like really low, 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 and make soft, spreadable like garlic butter. Oh my God, garlic bread. I could go on all day. And it's really good for dogs. I know people say garlic is like poison for dogs, but it is not poison in a small amount. And it actually is very beneficial to their bodies too.
Hmm.
I didn't say this, Amy, and I could go on forever, so I'll try to be quick, but livestock and natural methods of food and medicine is something we are becoming really strong at. So,
Oh, that's right. You were telling me that you were giving, was it garlic to your new pigs?
well, we haven't, I don't think we've given garlic yet, but
What was it that you were giving to your new
we
pigs?
do a natural deworming routine. Sweet Annie Artemisia is probably what
That's
you,
what it was, the sweet
yeah,
Annie.
because coccidiosis is there, and if you do breed pigs, you will get that at some point. We have not yet in 3 years, but Um, I'm thinking it's because of our methods. We do keep the areas relatively clean and we pasture them when it's not
Mm,
winter. We move them all over the farm. But when it's winter, they need to all be in different paddocks closer to our house so we can get to them
sure.
and not, be able to get to them basically, as we can't get back up our hill when it's covered in ice. So that's the only reason we can't continue to pasture them through the winter. It's just the snow makes it too hard. So because they're more, I wouldn't say confined, they have constant outdoor access and indoors when they want to, but there's more of a chance and opportunity for disease when they're not moving around. So we do grow sweet Annie Artemisia, and then I'll shake the dried stalks. It's like it's almost like, reminds me of a giant broom, and it has thousands and thousands of seed heads, like little polleny seed heads at the end of the season, and it's super easy to grow. You'll always have it if you grow it once and you let one plant go to seed and you forget about it, it'll be on your property forever. So you just go search for those, stalks and then shake them in the livestock pen after you've cleaned out your units. And I think that is such a beneficial thing for keeping mycoplasmas and bacteria and diseases at bay because it's a strong natural dewormer. It's wormwood. It is a wormwood, sweet Annie. And other artemisias work great too. So the pigs will eat it. They know how much to eat. They don't eat a ton, but they eat what they need, I think, for their gut to keep the parasites down.
Mm.
And we did have our land tested, like all of the spots where the pigs have been for the last year, and they've rotated a lot. Our vet came and did fecal sample testing from through all three locations where we had the majority of the pigs, and they came back with zero parasites. We've never had a different test result. That's all we've ever had is zero parasites. And our vet's like, how do you do this? Because maybe you don't have parasites on your 20 acres. And I laugh. I'm like, well, we have deer, we have foxes, we have wolves, we have
Right.
coyotes, we have raccoons, we have everything. So I'm pretty sure we have that stuff. We've got parasites, we must. But the pigs' bodies, when they ingest the grasses and some of the natural deworming, they just don't end up, it just doesn't show in a test. So, and there are like many stages of parasitic worms. They can live as larvae, they can live in the intestine, they can live like in all different places inside the body, and they are at different stages themselves. They could be a full parasitic, like a big worm, they can be a tiny larvae, they can be in between. And so the vet's like, maybe dependent on the time of year, we might find something, but they haven't. I think the natural deworming is so strong. So we're just really learning about the powers of herbs as well.
That's so cool. I mean, and the fact that it's free and just grows there. That's amazing.
Yes. Well, but
So,
speaking of time sustainability, I'm sure you have things to do, and I do too. So this
right.
is
You
like
got a
really
farm to
fun.
run.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us, Amy.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm so glad to get to know you guys and to get to share your message because I love it. I love it. I love it all. And I want to get some plants and I want to get some sweet Annie so that I can have that as
Oh
well.
yes.
I'm going to grow it
Come
in my
visit.
chicken pen for
You'll
sure.
love it. The chickens will like it too.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jen. And remember everyone to look Jen up if you have any questions about farming, about plants, about animals,
Yeah,
about
happy to
anything, because she loves to research and she knows a lot.
Yeah, we want you guys to try it too. Try something, grow something
Grow
this year.
something.
Yeah.
Awesome.